It wasn't the storm that broke Emily Carter. It was the silence after. The kind of silence that wraps itself around your throat, not loud, not violent, but slow and paralyzing. The kind that doesn't scream with betrayal but whispers it in the absence of support, in the echoes of unanswered calls, and in the cold void of people who should have said something, but chose not to. Emily stood in the middle of her apartment, her now empty apartment. Her clothes were in black garbage bags. Her books were in a ripped-up box. The last plant on the windowsill was turning brown, like it too had given up. Just a month ago, she was the woman everyone admired. A sharp-minded, deeply empathetic young leader at her tech firm in Seattle. She had climbed her way up without any shortcuts, working double hours, mentoring interns, bringing snacks to team meetings, and remembering birthdays. Everyone said she had a light in her. Everyone smiled at her when she passed. Everyone said she made them feel seen. But now? Now no one even made eye contact. Her bank account was nearly dry. Her reputation? Shredded in a flurry of internal emails and silent nods. A whisper campaign had bloomed, and she wasn't even allowed the courtesy of knowing who started it. Just a cold meeting with HR, a vague allegation of ethical violations, and a suggestion that it would be best for everyone if she resigned quietly. She had asked for proof. They hadn't given her any. She asked if someone could speak on her behalf. No one had. Emily had always imagined that if the world ever turned on her, someone, just one person, would step in and say, "This isn't who she is." But when it mattered the most, every voice disappeared. Every single one. The scent of stale coffee clung to the air. A few of her colleagues had offered weak smiles in the hallway during her last day, but no one had spoken up. Not even her best friend at work, Maya, who she had once stayed up all night with when Maya's fiancé cheated on her. Emily sank onto the floor next to her nearly empty suitcase. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone. She scrolled through her call history. Missed calls? None. Texts? Only from her landlord, demanding rent. Emails? All automated. No words of support. No, I believe you. Nothing. She had nothing left. Not her job. Not her savings. Not her friends. And the cruelest part? They knew. They knew she didn't do it. She wasn't some criminal. She wasn't some liar or cheat. Someone had set her up. Someone had twisted things. She had felt it in her bones. The spreadsheets she'd been blamed for manipulating, she hadn't even opened them the week they said she did. But she hadn't been allowed to prove it. And the others? They knew it. She had seen it in Maya's eyes during that final elevator ride. That tight-lipped, watery-eyed glance. Maya knew something, but she said nothing. Emily had replayed that scene in her head every night since. "Is there anything you want to say?" she had asked Maya softly. Maya looked down at the glowing elevator buttons. I just don't want to be involved," she whispered. Emily had nodded. Not because she understood, but because she had no energy left to fight for her dignity. The wind outside howled against the window, rattling it like angry fingers tapping against the glass. Emily's breath fogged up the pain as she leaned close. She could see the skyline from here, the same one that once represented her ambition. Now it felt distant, foreign, like it belonged to someone else. She whispered to herself, "How did it come to this?" The question dissolved into the air like smoke, unanswered. The only response was the ticking of the wall clock and the weight of the silence pressing down like bricks on her chest. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. It still smelled like her perfume, lavender and citrus. A scent she used to wear to feel powerful. Now it felt ironic. Powerless. That was what she felt now. But beneath that, beneath the pain and confusion and betrayal, there was something else. Something cold. Sharp. Quiet. Anger. Not the explosive kind. Not the kind that made you scream or throw plates. No, this was the kind that simmered. The kind that waited. The kind that remembered. They all knew. And they let her fall. Someone had once told her, silence is a decision. And now she understood. It wasn't just about who lied. It was about who refused to speak the truth. And she wasn't going to forget that. Not now. Not ever. A week later, Emily was gone from Seattle. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She didn't post it on social media. She didn't update her LinkedIn. She packed what was left of her dignity in a duffel bag, bought a one-way ticket, and vanished. They could pretend she was just another disgraced employee. They could tell each other she probably did something wrong. They could invent stories to make their silence seem less cruel. But what they didn't know, what none of them could predict, was that Emily Carter wasn't done. Not even close. Because secrets don't stay buried forever. And she had just found her first clue. Emily Carter was born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to a quiet home filled with the smell of old books, jazz music, and a mother who cooked dinner at 6 p.m. sharp every night. Her father was a high school literature teacher, and her mother worked nights at the local library. They weren't rich, not even close. But their home was warm, full of words and love, and most importantly, truth. Truth was sacred in the Carter household. It didn't matter if it hurt, if it embarrassed you, or if it revealed something ugly. Truth came first. People can forgive almost anything, her father used to say, except being lied to. As a child, Emily absorbed that lesson like oxygen. She was the kind of girl who owned up when she broke a plate, even if her little brother could have taken the blame. She once told a teacher her friend had cheated on a test. It cost her the friendship, but she never regretted it. Honesty was her foundation. Even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. In school, she was the bright one. Not just academically, but emotionally. She remembered classmates' birthdays, helped tutor students who were falling behind, and stayed after class to help clean up the art room, even when she didn't have to. She wasn't a saint. She had her faults. She was stubborn, too sensitive, and sometimes trusted too quickly. But she believed in people. And that belief followed her into adulthood. After graduating from the University of North Carolina with a degree in data analytics, she got accepted into a competitive internship in Seattle at a rising tech company named Verdexa. It was supposed to be temporary, a foot in the door. But her brilliance and work ethic caught the eye of the executives. Within 3 years, she had worked her way into a full-time role as Product Insights Manager, one of the youngest in the company's history. She had built dashboards that executives used in board meetings. She led projects that tripled efficiency. She stayed late, skipped vacations, and volunteered to mentor every new intern who walked through the door. That's how she met Maya Brooks. Maya was soft-spoken and introverted, a year younger than Emily, with a love for UX design and a nervous laugh she tried to hide. Emily had taken her under her wing almost instantly. She taught her how to navigate office politics, how to say no professionally, and how to ask for raises. They became fast friends, even spending weekends hiking together or trying out Korean barbecue joints downtown. Emily had shared everything with Maya, her fears, her dreams, her heartbreak when her long-distance boyfriend dumped her over FaceTime. And Maya had listened, supported, encouraged. Or so Emily thought. There were others too, of course. People who had played roles in what would later become her downfall. James Rudd, her direct supervisor. Charismatic, always wearing the latest smartwatch, always praising Emily in meetings, but never crediting her in emails. He had a way of making her feel valued, and then replacing her ideas with his own when promotions came around. Tiffany Hall, the HR manager who always smiled too tightly. She once told Emily, "You're exactly what this company needs," during a diversity summit. But when Emily asked for help in resolving internal tensions about credit stealing on a recent project, Tiffany had replied, "You might want to handle that diplomatically, for your own good." And then there was Ryan Jacobs. Ryan had started at Verdexa around the same time as Emily. He was brilliant, arrogant, and competitive in the way that quietly turned everything into a battlefield. Emily hadn't considered him an enemy, just someone she never truly trusted. But there had been small incidents. Once, a data report she had been working on mysteriously went missing. Another time, a presentation she was due to lead got reassigned last minute. A scheduling error, they said, but Ryan had taken the slot and the praise. Emily had started documenting things after that. She had a folder on her laptop titled Backup Truth. just in case. Outside of work, Emily had always kept a circle of close friends, tight, loyal, protective. She didn't trust easily, but when she did, it was full-hearted. Kayla Jennings was her best friend since high school, still living in North Carolina. They called each other every Sunday, without fail. But when the accusations at work hit and Emily's world started to collapse, the weekly calls stopped. Kayla had messaged a short, "Thinking of you" once. But no follow-up. Not one person had visited her apartment. Not one person asked her what actually happened. The accusation that shattered her life came on a rainy Thursday in April. Emily had just wrapped up a product launch, a successful one. She had led the team, compiled analytics, and presented insights to the CEO himself. Everything had gone perfectly. Then she was called into HR. They said there had been concerns. Data manipulation. Reporting errors. A breach of internal compliance. Emily had laughed at first. It was impossible. She was meticulous. She had triple-checked every number, backed up every sheet. But they weren't joking. And they weren't giving her any names. No chance to defend herself. No review. Just an offer to resign voluntarily with a letter of recommendation if she agreed not to pursue legal action. She had walked out of the building that day in shock. In silence. Her badge disabled. Her email account deleted. Her dignity erased. Her mother, God bless her, had wanted her to come home. "Emily, baby, don't stay out there in that city all alone. You don't need to prove anything. Come back and let us take care of you." But Emily couldn't. Not yet. Because something in her heart refused to believe it was over. Because someone, maybe multiple people, had helped this lie grow. And worse, people she loved had watched it happen and walked away. They hadn't stood up for her. They hadn't even asked her what happened. They let the silence tell the story. And silence, Emily realized, is the most dangerous story of all. She started writing everything down after that. Names. Dates. Emails. Phone calls. Things that didn't add up. Because she was no longer just a woman recovering from a fall. She was a woman on a mission. She didn't want revenge. She wanted truth. Real, painful, unavoidable truth. And she was going to find it, even if she had to do it alone. Seattle was in her rearview mirror now, literally and figuratively. Emily sat behind the wheel of her borrowed car, the highway stretching endlessly before her. The sky was washed in pale gray, the kind of muted tone that mirrored the hollowness inside her. She hadn't driven long distances in years, but the movement helped. It kept her from freezing in place. She had a plan. Well, pieces of one. She was heading to Portland, Oregon, the first breadcrumb in a trail she hadn't even realized existed until the day after she left Verdexa. She had been organizing old emails, trying to put together a portfolio for potential freelance work, when she stumbled on something odd. A forwarded message from nearly 6 months ago. A string of replies buried in a chain about user data access. One part stood out. "I'll make sure it gets filtered through ours access. Less exposure that way. Jr. James Rudd. Her supervisor. She hadn't noticed it before. Why would she? It was buried under dozens of project update replies. But now, it raised a red flag. Why would James need to filter anything through someone else's access? More importantly, who was R? Ryan? Rachel? Raymond from the design team? She didn't know. But she intended to find out. She checked into a small motel in Portland with flickering neon lights and a sour-smelling lobby. It wasn't glamorous, but it was cheap and anonymous. She needed both. Her plan was to meet with an old intern she had mentored, Lena Chavez, now working remotely for Verdexa's Oregon branch. Lena had been sweet, observant, and quiet, but sharp as a razor beneath her shy demeanor. If anyone noticed something strange and hadn't been swept up in the company's betrayal culture, it would be her. They met at a quiet cafe near the waterfront. Emily spotted her immediately. Same oversized glasses, same nervous tucking of hair behind ears. "Emily." Lena whispered like she was seeing a ghost. Emily gave a weak smile. "In the flesh." Lena pulled her into a hug. "God, I was hoping you'd call. I didn't know what to do." Emily's heart leapt. You knew, didn't you? Lena looked around nervously, then nodded. I didn't have proof, but something felt off. Right before everything happened, I was pulled into a last-minute meeting. James, Ryan, and some senior guy I'd never seen before. They were arguing. I only caught a little, but Ryan kept saying, "She's too clean. There's no dirt. We'll have to manufacture something." Emily felt her throat tighten. They didn't see you? She asked. No, Lena said. I was behind the divider in the micro kitchen. They thought the place was empty. And you didn't say anything? Lena's eyes filled with shame. I didn't know who to trust. And I'm just a junior contractor. I was scared. I'm sorry. Emily nodded slowly. It was the same fear. The same silence. But now it was turning into something else. A pattern. That night, Emily spread papers, screenshots, sticky notes, and printouts across the motel bed like pieces of a conspiracy board. She mapped names, connections, and overlapping projects. The deeper she dug, the more the story unfolded. James had a history of questionable expense reports. Ryan had applied for Emily's position a year before she got it and lost. And Tiffany from HR? She had previously worked at a rival firm that Emily had helped Verdexa beat out in a competitive contract bid. Coincidence? Maybe. But Emily didn't believe in coincidence anymore. The conflict exploded in her chest one night when she received a private message from a burner LinkedIn profile. The message read, "They're cleaning up the rest. Be careful who you talk to. You were never supposed to make it this far." She stared at the screen, her blood running cold. Someone was watching her. Someone knew she was still trying to find the truth. And they were trying to warn her or threaten her. Maybe both. She copied the message, screenshot it, and backed it up on 2 external drives. Then she sat there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the black screen. She had left her job with nothing but a duffel bag and a wounded spirit. Now she had fear, yes, but she also had leverage. And that meant she had power. The next stop was San Francisco. Ryan Jacobs had recently transferred to Verdexa's West Coast Innovation Lab, an upscale, glass-paneled building filled with AI developers and cloud engineers. She wouldn't get past the lobby. But she didn't need to. She just needed one thing, a photo. She had found a thread on Reddit discussing unethical practices at tech companies. A user named betrayal had posted about seeing someone forge access logs and shift blame to a female coworker. No names, no timestamps, but the writing style, it felt familiar. She traced the user to a small cybersecurity subreddit. And there, buried in a random comment section, was a photo of a Verdexa whiteboard, blurred, but in the corner, she could make out initials. RJ/JR. Ryan Jacobs and James Rudd. Collaborating on something. The post was made 3 days before Emily had been accused of misconduct. She reached out anonymously and offered to pay for more info. The user agreed, but insisted on meeting in person. It was a risk, but Emily was done playing safe. The meeting took place in the corner of a bookstore cafe. The man who arrived was in his late 20s, with a nervous twitch in his left eye and a hoodie 2 sizes too big. He called himself Theo. I worked on back-end access tools, he said after confirming Emily was alone. I don't know the full picture, but I know this. Ryan rerouted user logs. Made it look like they came from your credentials. I saw the scripts. Why didn't you report it? I did. Quietly. To internal audit. A week later, I was reassigned to a project in Taiwan and told to sign a new NDA. I refused. They canceled my contract. Emily leaned forward. Do you have proof? Theo looked around, then slid over a USB stick. Encrypted. Password is on the bottom of this cup. Emily held the coffee cup, heart pounding. In faded marker, the numbers 4132 were written. I can't get involved further, Theo said. But I hope you burn them. Emily Carter hadn't slept much. Her body ached. Her mind was fried. But her purpose? Crystal clear. In a dingy motel room 2 blocks from downtown San Francisco, she sat hunched over her laptop, eyes fixed on the spinning decryption bar of Theo's USB drive. It felt like defusing a bomb, every second pulsing with risk and adrenaline. The file decrypted. Inside, for folders, access logs, screen captures, com threads, auto scripts. She clicked through them like a surgeon peeling back layers of infection. The access logs were damning. Hundreds of entries forged under her employee ID, long after she had clocked out, and some even during times she'd been presenting live on camera. Next, the screen captures. James Rudd, Ryan Jacobs, and a third unidentified man sitting together, going through logs and modifying strings. In one image, a sticky note on James's desk showed a drawing, crudely, but Emily could see the words. Make her the fall guy. She stopped breathing. Even after all this time, even after losing her job, her reputation, and half her sanity, the rawness of those words cut like a blade. Fall guy. She wasn't even a person to them. Just a target. A decoy. The communications folder made it even worse. They had an entire Slack channel hidden from regular employees, named #QC Project Cleanup. Inside were messages coordinating the switch, timing Emily's vacation days, even joking about how good little Emily won't know what hit her. She closed the laptop. Tears were streaming down her cheeks, silent and warm. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a campaign. A coordinated takedown, because she had gotten too close to uncovering something James had done months before. Fraud. Misuse of executive accounts. A scandal so deep that Ryan had helped shift the attention to Emily to save the department. The truth was there. It was now undeniable. But what would she do with it? The next morning, she mailed 3 encrypted USB copies to separate locations. One to her attorney cousin in D.C., one to a freelance journalist she had known from college, and one to her mother in North Carolina, with a letter that read, If anything happens to me, take this to the press. All of it. Don't let them rewrite my story. Emily wasn't paranoid. She was prepared. Now came the confrontation. She called James Rudd's assistant directly, using a spoof number, and pretended to be a former client from a Verdexa conference. Said she had a potential high-stakes analytics offer and wanted to meet James personally for a 20-minute pitch. It worked. Mr. Rudd will meet you at 3:30 p.m. this Friday, the assistant confirmed. Emily smiled to herself. Friday was tomorrow. The next day, she wore a professional gray blazer, hair neatly tied, with barely their makeup. She walked into the glass building of Verdexa's West Coast HQ like she had every right to be there. No one stopped her. James met her in the executive meeting lounge, gold watch flashing and teeth polished with smugness. Until he recognized her. His smile dropped. You, he said, blinking. Emily set her phone, already recording, face down on the table. Hello, James. I thought you'd like a chance to come clean before I go public. His face twitched. You're trespassing. Don't waste my time, she interrupted. I have the logs. The Slack messages. The scripts. Even the screenshot where you labeled me the fall guy. It's all saved. It's all backed up. And it's already with people you can't intimidate. He went pale. This is extortion. No, Emily said calmly. This is justice. She leaned in, her eyes locked on his. You ruined my career. You let them believe I lied. You watched as my name was dragged through the mud, and you never said a word. James didn't speak. So here's the deal, she continued. I'm giving you 24 hours. I want a full retraction letter submitted to HR, signed by you and Ryan. I want it posted to the same internal email list that saw the original accusation. I want my record cleared, and I want your resignation. You don't have that kind of power. Emily stood. You're about to find out exactly how much I have. Within 36 hours, the news had hit both internal company forums and TechCrush, a major industry blog. Former Verdexa executive implicated in data manipulation scandal. Whistleblower reveals orchestrated smear campaign against colleague. The fallout was swift and brutal. James Rudd was terminated immediately. Ryan Jacobs's credentials were revoked pending legal review. Tiffany Hall resigned quietly the following week, citing personal reasons. Verdexa tried to do damage control, offering Emily a public apology, a settlement, and a chance to be reinstated with a promotion. She declined. She wasn't interested in reclaiming a throne built on broken ethics. She had something bigger in mind. Months passed. Emily started her own data ethics consultancy, Carter Integrity Solutions. Her first clients were companies scared of repeating Verdex's mistakes. She spoke at panels. She wrote a book. And eventually, she sat across from a Senate committee hearing, sharing her story to help shape national data privacy laws. She became a face, not a victimhood, but a vindication. But the moment she considered her greatest triumph was the day Maya Brooks, her former friend, sent a message that simply read, "I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you. I was afraid. I was wrong." Emily replied, "I know. And I forgive you. But we're not the same anymore." Because forgiveness didn't mean returning to the past. It meant choosing peace. And Emily Carter had fought too hard to live in anything else but the truth. Time has a strange way of healing the soul, not by erasing pain, but by giving it shape, giving it meaning. For Emily Carter, that shape was no longer a shattered reputation or a void left by betrayal. It was a foundation, one she built brick by brick, scar by scar. Looking back, there were nights she thought she wouldn't make it. Nights when she sat on the bathroom floor of a stranger's guest room, wondering how it all slipped away so fast. Wondering why no one stood up for her. Why even her closest friends had chosen silence. But now she saw it all for what it really was. A test. Not of skill, not of career, but of her character. When you lose everything, you're faced with a choice. Do you crumble or do you rise? She chose to rise. Her new life wasn't perfect. She didn't wake up every day with sunshine and confidence. Some mornings, the memory of James's smirk or Maya's cold eyes still flashed before her like ghosts. But she had built systems to deal with them. Therapy, prayer, reflection, and above all, purpose. She dedicated herself to helping others who had been silenced, scapegoated, or underestimated. Not just in tech. Everywhere. From interns wrongfully terminated, to whistleblowers labeled troublemakers, to women who had been told to smile and stay quiet. Emily gave them something she had to fight tooth and nail for: a voice. Her consultancy became more than just a company. It became a movement. And soon, people began sharing their own stories. A junior analyst fired for reporting fraud. A Black engineer pushed out of promotions for being too ambitious. A working mother forced to choose between her ethics and her paycheck. Emily read every email and replied to every single one because she knew what it felt like to be ignored. One day, she received an invitation. It wasn't from a company or a podcast or a press conference. It was a handwritten letter delivered through her office. "You don't know me, but you changed my life. When I saw your story online, I realized I wasn't crazy. That the gaslighting I experienced wasn't my imagination. I left my toxic job. I'm building something of my own now. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for speaking." There was no name, just a heart. Emily cried for an hour after reading it. Not out of sadness, but release. She mattered. Her story mattered. And it wasn't just about revenge or exposure. It was about truth. It was about showing others that even when the world leaves you with nothing, truth has the power to restore everything. If you're reading this, maybe you've been where Emily was. Maybe you've felt the sting of betrayal. Maybe you've watched people you once loved or respected choose comfort over conscience. Maybe you've been left with nothing. But here's what the world doesn't tell you enough. Nothing is where the real story begins. Nothing is where strength is born. Nothing is where people like Emily Carter are forged. And if you're there now, on your knees, feeling erased, forgotten, or falsely accused, listen closely. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not finished. Let this story be your reminder that your truth matters more than their approval. That your silence cannot protect you, but your courage might inspire someone else. That healing isn't about going back, it's about moving forward with power. Ask yourself, what would you do if the people you trusted the most betrayed you? Would you break? Or would you rise? Because someone out there is waiting to hear your story. Someone who needs your voice like you needed Emily's. So speak. Rise. Rebuild. And never forget, the truth always finds its way. And sometimes it uses people like you to get there.